Okay, my name is Nick and I am an alcoholic. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker of Alcoholics Anonymous. Just a couple quick announcements. Food and Fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock. Service is an excellent way to stay sober. We have a YouTube page. You can check us out on there. Also have a couple Facebook pages, the Doylestown Recovery Group, and the Conscious Contact Speaker Group on Facebook. Excellent ways to stay in touch and to find meetings and stay sober. We have two other meetings that are conjoined with this meeting. On Monday night at 6 o'clock, it's a step meeting right here in this room. It starts at 6 o'clock, and we go through the steps one by one. We're starting on step 1 this next week. And we have Feet First covering the next journey through the steps. So that's pretty cool. They're coming over from Quakertown. Different speaker each week. We also have a sister group up on Court Street at Salem Church on Thursday nights at 7:30. It's a big book meeting. We go through the book line by line, sentence by sentence, solve all the world's problems. Please come check us out there. And before that, we have Kara to come up and chair the meeting.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Carol, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and Fellowship starts at 8 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. Thank you, Mr. Ron. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new from out of town or that would like to introduce themselves with their first name only? David, welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Zoe. I just moved here from Westchester.
Oh, welcome, Zoe. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor please raise their hands? Are there any announcements for the good of AA?
Hi, I'm Dave.
Hey, Dave.
There is an Acts of Recovery, which is a free mini-conference, April 2nd. It's out of New Jersey. 4 one-hour speakers, lunch is served. This is a free event, and it's from 12 to 5. So you still have time to go there and make it back here Saturday night. I have a digital flyer if anyone is interested. And it's Saturday, April 2nd in Chatham, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purpose of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar at the back of the room. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or any home group member before or after the meeting. They are available free of charge. Now I'm going to ask Sherry to come up and read the preamble. Let's give Sherry a warm welcome.
Hi, I'm Sherry, I'm an alcoholic. AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. I've asked Michelle to come up and read the 12 Steps of Recovery.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I'm an alcoholic. Hi. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
The seventh tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. The group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce the speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Let's give Christine from Los Angeles a warm welcome. Woo-hoo!
Water, thank you very much. Hi, I'm Christine. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, and many thanks to my friend Ron for asking me to come out and speak. Ron's been asking me to come out here for years, actually, and I'm finally in town. It's super nice to be here. And I know this is a good meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous because when I walked in, there was a coffee made and donuts and people shaking my hand and showing me where to sit, and then there was a greeting line and just a huge pocket of enthusiasm for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love that. I have so much appreciation for that, and so I'm super grateful to be here. And thanks to my friend David for riding out with me tonight. That love sharing AA with my people who are close in my life, and that's real special too. So I got to speak a whole hour. I hope I can fill the hour, but if not, we all go home a little early. We'll see. Nobody complains as long as I don't go late, right? So anyway. Just a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Ron was asking me, well, what last letter of your name do you want to put on the flyer? And I was like, well, I've got a hyphenated last name. It's a little complicated, but my family's name is Murphy, and I grew up just outside of Boston, and my family's business, we had an Irish pub, and some kids grow up playing store, some kids play house. My brother and I, we played bar. So one of us was the customer, the other one was the bartender. We served each other. So I don't really remember my first drink. I do remember being sitting on my dad's lap, and he would take a sip of his beer and he'd give me a little, and if we had a toothache, we got whiskey on our gums. It's just alcohol was everywhere. And but what I can say is that I was a really nervous little kid. I used to bite my nails till they bled, and I would grind my teeth in my sleep. My little baby teeth would come out and they'd have little notches in them. I'd put them under my pillow with little ridges. And I would break out in nervous rashes. I had rashes all over my face because I just had so much anxiety. And I couldn't really go out on the playground to play very well. I would get into fights. I would beat up boys on the playground. It was safer for me to stay in and sit in the library and memorize library books. And, I could say all the states alphabetically, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado. This is I was nervous and edgy, and I could not relax. And when I started drinking for real, when my drinking started, it was just this huge relaxation. All of the social anxiety went away. All of the nervous rashes went away. I stopped eating junk food in front of the television. I became a different person, And, that there's a line in our big book, in Bill's story. He said, I was part of life at last. And that's how drinking felt for me. At last. I could take part. I remember my first real bad drunk. Like I said, I don't remember my first drink. I grew up around alcohol. I had tasted it. But my first real bad drunk, I was at a party, and I had braces on my teeth. So, I was a little girl. I was 15 years old. I had braces on my teeth, and I had some awful turquoise plaid sweater on, and I just felt chubby and self-conscious and uncomfortable. And I remember some kid passing me a bottle of root beer schnapps, and it's thunder, right? It's my bottle of root beer schnapps, right? That's how it felt, right? The skies opened up. I'm not kidding, right? That's how it felt. Thank you, God. And I remember, some kid clearly had stolen that from their parents' liquor cabinet. I mean, where do you get that, right? And I remember drinking that root beer schnapps, and I can still feel that glass on my teeth. And you hear rain, it just felt like cool rain coming down, and all of a sudden, all of that nervous anxiety went away. And I had a lot of fun that night. Not exactly sure how the full sequence of events, but I ended up with a new boyfriend at the end of that night. Not really sure how I got home. I did wake up in my bed, and I was piecing all the parts together, and that was to become a real pattern, and next day, like I said, I was a little girl. I look at 15-year-old girls. I think about how young and innocent they look, and I think about how my drinking began. And I wrote in my diary that morning, dear diary, last night my life began. And I did. I just felt like I was part of life at last. And I went back to that party. It was a weekend rager. Kids' parents were out of town, and I went back and I drank again. And I started to look for opportunities to drink like that, because for me, like I said, that there's nothing that took away that edgy, itchy, intensity like alcohol. It was magic, and it worked immediately. And so, yeah, my drinking really took off that year. By the time I was 16, I was, blacking out and waking up in places that were scaring me. I was having bad things that were starting to happen to me. And, what also happened to me was that my dad, like I said, I'd grown up in a bar room, and my dad had gotten sober in Alcoholics Anonymous right as my drinking was picking up. My dad had been a hard drinker, and, he had gotten sober in AA. And so just as my drinking was picking up, my dad was getting sober. And, there was one night I'd come home, I was really wasted, and I passed out in the bathtub with the water running, and I guess I almost drowned. The water was running over the tub, and, my parents must have pulled me out, and I remember waking up in my bed wet and being oh, this is not good. And, the next day, my parents had a long talk with me about alcoholism, and my dad was probably 6 months sober at the time, and instead of really punishing me, I mean, they set some boundaries for me, but instead of really punishing me, my dad, he started going out to his home group and asking all the young women in his home group to come and start talking to me about alcoholism, and I found out later, of course, that his sponsor had given him that direction. So right at right at like 16 years old, I had like these really old women, like 25, 26 years old. Like they were calling me, like they were like taking me out to coffee. I was like, why are these like mothers like hanging out with me? Like what is going on, right? Like, and they're asking me about my drinking and they're telling me about theirs, and like they were really cool, and I really liked them, and like I identified with their drinking, but I was like, this is bizarre. I was like, what is happening? And my dad would bribe me to go to AA meetings. He'd be like, the only thing I want for Father's Day is for my 2 children to come with me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd be in AA with my dad. And at 16, your dad embarrasses you anyways, right? And my dad would be there. He'd have his arm around my chair, and he'd be like waving to his friends. He'd be like, I got my daughter here. He'd be like waving around the room. And I'd just be humiliated. I'd just be like, oh, God, Dad, make it stop, right? And and the speakers would be up there, and they'd be like, hey, my name's Fred, I'm an alcoholic. We'd be like, hi, Fred. It's just I was so not interested in being a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I appreciated that my dad was getting sober. My dad was like the poster child for AA when he got sober. I'd come downstairs, he'd be like making dinner, and I'd be like, Dad, what's for dinner? He'd be like, let go and let God, and like, we're glad you're sober. He'd be like inviting the family to morning meditation. I was like, that, I'm not having this, right? Like at 16, like I said, like I was having some problems with alcohol, but it was also a magical solution for me. And I did not want to be in the same rooms as my dad. And I knew, yeah, you guys all talked about one day at a time, but I knew that was like one day at a time forever, right? Like I was like not interested, right? They did not want to spend Saturday nights in a church basement. No offense to you all, but right? And here I am, right? The irony is here, but at 16, I had zero appeal. But like I said, scary things were starting to happen to me. So I decided that I was going to quit drinking on my own. And our big book talks about people like me. They talk about, for if we have a good enough reason, we may be able to stop for a while. And I did. I stopped for a while. I stopped from I probably drank like a couple of times between 16 and 18. And then I went to college and started drinking my first semester in college. I started waking up with terrible hangovers. Again, things got bad real fast, and I was clear. I was I'm not going to be able to function here if I keep drinking. I took a pledge and stopped, and I really didn't drink very much in between 18 to 21. But when I got sober young, and when I got here, I wasn't sure if I had drank enough, and the third tradition has always really helped me. It says, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and I had that desire at 15, 16, right? I started trying to quit on my own, when I was a child. So, if anybody belongs here, it's me. I don't have a problem with drinking. I have a problem with quitting or staying quit, right? So that's really my problem, is that I can stop. I just can't stay stopped, and so my drinking, I was I hadn't drank in a couple of years. I turned 21. I was I was just a kid that had a little, family problems. I was a little nervous and weird. But now I'm 21. I can drink like a gentleman, right? My hats will be off to me, right? And so I went out with my new 21-year-old license, right, to go buy some alcohol. I was all excited. I had $6. I needed $2 to get into a campus dance, so that left me $4 to buy alcohol. And instead of being like a normal girl, wow, it's a lot of rain. Instead of being like a normal girl, going in and buying a couple of wine coolers, I went around to the entire liquor store and I did a cost-benefit analysis of what was the most proof I could get for $4. And I'll tell you the best value for your money. It is Banana Strawberry Mad Dog 2020, by far the best amount, the best proof, right? Kind of like a wine cooler, right? And that's what I bought. And I hadn't drank in years. That's that mental obsession that I have about alcohol. That out of nowhere, I'm thinking about drinking and how much can I get, right? That is my thinking. And my book describes me, right? The book of Alcoholics Anonymous describes me. Like, I'm like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, I hadn't drank in years. My roommates hadn't seen me drunk. Like, I took the bottle to the campus dance. I drank the entire thing. I'm like vomiting in the bathroom. They are like dragging me out. Like, they have to pull the car back and up to the campus center, like put me down. I'm hungover for days. I get to this day, I can't eat anything with imitation banana flavoring. Oh my God. Like, but you know, that's alcoholism. It's not that my drinking was that much heavier, because there were other kids that were drinking like that. It's that I have this like queer mental twist about alcohol. Like, I think differently. And what I also didn't understand really until that experience was this phenomenon of craving. Because once I started drinking at 21, it was on. Like, and the progression, right? Like, at 16, at 18, I was able to kind of put the brakes on and stop. But like at 21, like, I was having a hard time putting the brakes on. I started to find myself drinking when I didn't mean to. And I started finding myself like unable to stop anymore, right? And that went on from 21 to 24. And so, you know, again, the big book Alcoholics Anonymous describes me. Women are often gone beyond recall in just a few short years. And from 21 to 24, I experienced a lot of incomprehensible demoralization. I did a lot of things that I said I wouldn't do. And by the time I was 24, I was throwing up blood. I was shaky in the mornings. Like, I was having a hard time functioning. Like, and the worst part about my drinking is how I felt on the inside. I was truly suicidal. Like, I really had lost the joy of living. Like, there was nothing on the outside that could make me feel okay. Like, there was no amount of accomplishments, there was no amount of friends, there was no amount of parties. Like I felt like a shell of a human. Like, I really could not imagine living another 50 years like feeling how I felt. And at the end of my drinking, I started, really trying to find help. Like, I started, going to psychiatrists and psychologists' offices, and, I started studying, philosophy and theology, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I started, trying to, get active in, political groups or hobbies. I took up tap dancing. I mean, it just, I could not, I figured, it's joyful, right? But I could not find any sense of peace within my heart. I just felt empty. And, I had everything on the outside. I was in a really good graduate program. I had good grades. My dad was sober. I had a family that loved me. I had money in the bank. I had a car. I had a beautiful apartment. I had friends. I had a beautiful life ahead of me, and I felt like dying. I could not feel grateful for any of it. I couldn't appreciate any of it. None of it made me feel any better. There was nothing on the outside that could take away that lonely despair of alcoholism. And at the end of my drinking, like I said, I'd been making my rounds to psychologists and psychiatrists' offices, and they'd given me some Klonopin, which I started drinking on, and that's a bad mix. And, my stomach was so torn up, I used to keep a bottle of Pepto-Bismol in the cup holder of my car, and I would just chug it, I was so sick. And I did. I really wanted to die. And I started thinking, I started fantasizing about suicide. I would walk down the street, and I'd be like, yeah, if I just stepped out in front of this bus, would they know I meant it? And that's really dark, that's a really dark way to live. And I also didn't know I had alcoholism. I really didn't. My drinking looked really different than my dad's. I still wasn't a daily drinker at the end of my drinking. I was drinking a lot more, but I really thought that I was having a nervous breakdown. I really thought that I was, crazy. I thought that maybe I was manifesting schizophrenia at an early age or something. I just really did not know what was the matter with me. And But what I did know was that my drinking was out of control and I wanted to stop and I couldn't. I really, I had lost that ability to stop. And my last drink was not any worse or any crazier than any other night, but I did have just this moment of clarity. It was my brother's birthday. It was my brother's birthday is February 3rd. This was 1995. I'm 27 years sober. And my brother, this was way back before they had cell phones. So, I had to be home to call my brother. And it was a snowy night in Boston. And I just loved drinking in the bars and in the pubs. And I loved to drink when it snowed. You go out and it was a big, snow festival, pub crawling and I just loved that. And I remember sitting on the couch and being my brother wasn't going to be home till 7 or 8 o'clock. And then I was waiting it out. And my roommate came home. He's like, hey, you want to go grab some beers? I was like, I'm out. And I left the house and I remember walking down the street and I was like, I am only going to have 3 beers. I'm only having 3 beers. And then I'm going home and I'm going to call my brother for his birthday. And I got to the bar and I remember being halfway through my first beer, and I remember thinking to myself, I am powerless over alcohol. I have no ability to go home and call my brother. I cannot stop, right? I just had this moment of clarity. There was no amount of self-will or trying. I failed to mention at this point in my life, I had a 4-foot wall chart on my bedroom wall, and I was charting my drinking with a color coding system. And blue was for first place, that means no drinks, and then red was second place, that's 2 drinks, or and then green is third place, that's 3 or 4, and then yellow is more than 4, and what my wall chart looks like is blue, 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 yellow, 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 right? There's no reds or greens on my chart. And if you're charting your drinking on a 4-foot wall chart, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Normal social drinkers don't do that, right? So anyway, I'm in the bar, and I just had this moment of clarity, I'm not going home to call my brother. And I had run out, that night I remember I ran out of money, and I made a deal with the bartender. I was like, if I get up on your bar and dance, will you give me free beer for the rest of the night? He's like, absolutely. So there I am, up on the bar, selling myself for my last beers. And, I don't remember how I got home that night. I do remember waking up in my bed vomiting. And I crawled out of my bed, and I got on my knees, and I said, God, I'm willing to do anything to stop drinking. And for me, what that meant was I was willing to try AA, right? Because up until that point, I was completely willing to do anything on self-will to stop drinking. But like I said, I had grown up in AA, I had been around AA, I did not want to go to AA. I really felt that my life would be over if I went to AA. And what that meant was that I was willing to, that night, I surrendered. I really understood that there is nothing that I can possibly do to stop drinking on my own. The wall chart, the therapy, the tap dancing lessons, the graduate program, none of that mattered. None of that could help me manage and control my drinking. I was powerless, and I needed help. And I haven't had a drink since that night, since I got on my knees and said that prayer, and saying I am willing to do anything. And and since that night, I really try to make that the way that I look at Alcoholics Anonymous, that I am willing to do anything to stop drinking. And, that really means building my life around Alcoholics Anonymous. And ironically, I have come to love Alcoholics Anonymous, right? As somebody who never wanted to spend a Saturday night in a church basement, I have come to make that the center of my life. And I found so much joy of living here. So if you are new and, it's either AA or suicide, really, welcome to AA. And, like I said, I came with a suicide pact. I was suicidal, at the end of my drinking. And I really thought to myself, well, I'll try AA. And if it doesn't work, then I'll kill myself, right? And that's a recipe for success in AA, right? That means that was a real, I'm willing to do anything that you ask me. And I gave it a time frame. I gave it a year. I'm willing to try AA for a year. And if at the end of the year I don't feel better, I can kill myself. And fortunately, I didn't find that necessary. That I started to really find the joy of living here. But that dark morning, I woke up after being on my knees. I was not sure, and I called a friend of mine who used to drink and didn't drink anymore. I knew what that code meant, right? His name was Peter, and I went to school with him, and I knew that he had a problem drinking, and he didn't drink anymore. I didn't want to call my dad. That was like the last person on earth I wanted to call at the end of my drinking. But I called Peter, and I said, Peter, I'm having a problem with my drinking, and I'm having a hard time stopping, and I'm wondering if you have any advice for me. And he's like, well, have you ever thought about AA? And I was like, yes, but I don't know, and I don't know if my story qualifies, right? And he told me that third tradition. He said the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And I'm so lucky, because had I measured how much I drank against other people, I wouldn't be here tonight, And he really made room for me in AA with that one statement. And he met me the next day all full of joy with a meeting list in his hand and all these meetings circled. And he walked me around Cambridge. He's like, on Monday night, this meets here. You can go here. And then down here on Tuesday night, here's where the meeting is on Tuesday. And he walked me all over Boston where I got sober and showed me each day where the meetings would be. And he says, I recommend you build your day around the meeting. And I thought, that's kind of extreme. I'm not even a daily drinker, right? He says, it's hard at the beginning. He says, you may want to build your day around a meeting. And, again, that's something I still do today. I really believe that even if I don't go to a meeting every day, I know where a meeting is, and I know where I can plug into AA, and I really try to keep a regular meeting schedule, no matter where I am. I travel a lot for work. My sponsor and I have a deal that I have to go to 3 meetings a week no matter where I am in the world, and I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world, not so much with COVID over the past couple of years, but before that, as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was traveling all over the world, and I've gone to meetings in probably over 40 countries. Yeah, and I have a big network of friends all over the world in AA. I remember I was sitting in a meeting in Singapore a couple of years ago, and some girl's looking at me. She's looking at me. After the meeting, she comes up. She says, did you get sober in Boston 20 years ago? I said, yes, I did. She's like, me too. I know you. I was like, oh my God, right? That was amazing, right? But if I wasn't building my day around a meeting, I wouldn't have that experience, and so anyway, Peter and his little meeting list and everything, and telling me to build my day around a meeting. And he also gave me some other really good information. He said, sit in front. It's easier to pay attention if you sit in front, and it's also harder to slip out the back. He says it's harder to leave early if you sit in front. You've got to get up, you've got to walk out in front of people. It's bad, you sit in front. And to this day, I try to sit in front. And he said, get to the meeting early and shake some hands, right? Say hello to people. Ask them how their day is. Try to be helpful to the meeting. If they need help setting up the chairs, or, do what's asked of you in AA. That's what he was telling me. And he said, get some phone numbers of other people in AA and get some friends. And he said, stay late after the meeting and go out for coffee or fellowship. He says, become a part of it. He told me that in my first week in AA. And boy, all that information has really been foundational to my sobriety to this day. Those are the things I try to do on a daily basis. So anyway, I went about joining a home group and getting a sponsor and getting some friends and getting some commitments in AA. And I was really lucky. I found a really active group of young people in AA. I got sober in Boston, and like I said, this was 27 years ago, and we're still friends. We got this posse of young people, and we did everything together. We went camping and to barbecues. We all dated each other. We went to AA conferences. We really threw ourselves. We started meetings together. We went to the international conventions together. We threw ourselves into AA, and and through that fellowship, I just really experienced a lot of relief from that obsession around alcohol. Like, I really started to experience the joy of living. And, and to this day, being part of an active group of Alcoholics Anonymous is really important to my sobriety. I'm a member of the Pacific group in Los Angeles. And the irony is I don't live in LA anymore, I live here. But I travel regularly back to Los Angeles to be a part of that group because I lived in LA for almost 20 years. And it really is my home group, and I really cherish that community. And so it's worth it for me to go back there and to be a part of that group. And, I've been lucky to be real active in the New York AA community, and I just got a house in Philadelphia a couple of months ago, and I'm looking forward to building my AA community in Philly. And I feel better about my life when I'm rooted in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got that real early on, and really got that joy of living by just active participation in AA. What happened for me was that I was probably about 8 years sober, and it wasn't that I hadn't done the steps, because I had a sponsor, and she had me do certain things in the steps. But I don't know, I just didn't get this whole concept of selfishness and self-seeking. It was just really it baffled me in my first few years of sobriety. It just sounded so poorly intentioned, and don't you know how good intentioned I am? I'm not selfish. I'm really I mean well. And I just somehow could not get the fact that I was what are you talking about, selfish? I'm not self-seeking. I'm just trying to be helpful here. Or if only if they saw it my way. I'm really looking out for the good of everybody. And I just could not understand. There was something about the steps I just was not getting. And AA was really patient with me. My sponsor was really patient with me. And, she was well, as long as you're active in AA and you're, being of service and things like that, you'll get your own spirit, and you're doing the things you're supposed to do, like praying and meditating and such, you'll get a spiritual experience. If you keep doing these things and stay sober, you'll get a spiritual experience. And, what happened for me is I was probably about 8.5 years sober. And I moved out to Los Angeles. I'd gotten sober in Boston. I moved out to LA. And, moving is really hard in sobriety. I lost, my home group, my sponsor, my sort of foundation to AA, and I was floundering a little bit. And like I said, I still didn't really have this, deep understanding of my own self-centeredness. I really didn't get that concept in my early sobriety, the first 9 years of it, really. but sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. So anyway, like I said, at about 8.5 years sober, I was starting to feel really uncomfortable in AA, and I really believe that's because I hadn't really completely, given myself over to the steps in a certain way, and and I stopped going to meetings for a little while. That was really the only period of time where I really stopped going to meetings. I stopped going to meetings for about 5 or 6 months when I first moved to LA, and I really believe I came very close to drinking at that period of my life. I would be driving in LA, and I would be driving by these billboards that were advertising low carbohydrate beer. That was when low carbohydrate beer had just come out, and I remember thinking to myself, that's it. Low carbohydrates won't provoke the phenomenon of craving. This is genius, right? This is the solution. And thank God, I had enough AA in me to be that's insane. You're going to drink like that. That's how people go out. That is really crazy thinking. And I would have these chatter in my head about these billboards for weeks. And, my dad used to say, if you get into a staring contest with a bottle, you're eventually going to lose. And I could feel that happening to me. Like, I knew that was happening to me. And I would say to myself, like, every day, I would be like, I've got to join a home group of AA here in Los Angeles. And then I wouldn't go. And you know, I had a new job, and I was in another graduate program, and I was really busy, you know, which really means I'm just too important for AA. And you know, and I had a whole bunch of friends that were not in AA, nice people, but they were social drinkers, and I was out in a lot of clubs, and I really was just, I knew like my clock was ticking. And through just a whole twist of circumstances, I met somebody who he was in the Pacific group, and he knew I was sober and I wasn't going to meetings, and he had taken the liberty to take a meeting list, and he'd circled all the meetings of his home group, and he had put it on my coffee table, and I was insulted. I was like, he had only had a year and a half, and I had like almost 9 years. I was like, that is just rude. Like, what are you trying to say? But he left that meeting list on my coffee table, and I looked at it for a long time, and I eventually picked that meeting list up, and I was like, I'm going to go tonight. And and that night I started having, like, I was having a really bad day, and I started having suicidal thoughts, and I was like, this is exactly how I felt when I came into AA. This is how I feel without Alcoholics Anonymous in my life. And I took that meeting list, and I'm like driving to the meeting, and I got lost, and like I was crying, and then I'm late, and then I could hear my old sponsor's voice, just go to the meeting, like just go. And I pulled over on the side of the road, and I called Alcoholics Anonymous just as if I had been new, and I said, you know, I'm really lost, and I can't find this meeting, and I haven't been to a meeting in months, and can you help me? And again, this is before they had GPS, and like, and the guy on the other end of central office was really nice. He stayed on the phone, my flip cell phone, and he stayed on the phone with me, and he had a Thomas guide, like back in the day, right, when he had mapped out like where I needed to be, and he stayed on the phone with me till I got to the meeting. And I walked in, and I'm in the doorway crying like a newcomer, and like, you know, some old guy was like, he grabbed me, put me in his seat, he says, are you new? And I said, no, I'm not new, but could you please introduce me to some women with time? And so he walked me up to a woman who was to become my sponsor, and she really saved my life. And she said to me something, again, that's been so helpful to me. You don't have to be new again in Alcoholics Anonymous. You do not have to be new again. And, you know, and I really, that night, I really feel like I was born again in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I just got another chance without having to go out. And, you know, Kelly was amazing. She just got me active in AA. She, you know, took me through the steps. And I remember reading, like, when did they put in all this information about selfishness and self-centeredness? Like, I was just like, what? I was like, when did they put this in here? Like, and you know, I had a real spiritual awakening by working the steps at that point in my life. And she brought me up to the Pacific group, which was to become my home group. And I remember coming up to the Pacific group. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's just a very large, active home group in Los Angeles. It's like, back at that time, it was like 1,200 members would meet on a Wednesday night, and they had meetings all over Los Angeles, and it was just this really active group. It's still a great home group, still active, but at that time it was like kind of at its zenith. And I remember, like, I'd been there for, like, I don't know, 2 weeks, and I remember coming up to Kelly and crying and be like, somebody told me that if I didn't get sober in the Pacific group, I'd never be a member or never be a real member. She said, oh, no. She said, oh, no, that's not true. She said, to be a member of the Pacific group, all you have to do is everything a newcomer would do for a year. And then if you do that, you'll be a full-time, like, member, like, you'll feel a part of. And so little did I know that meant 7 meetings a week with 7 commitments. And then, like, they do something called watches, where, like, if somebody turns a year, the entire group, like, shows up and, like, throws a party at midnight to watch the person turn 1. Like, and so it was super fun, right? But, like, there's a lot of people turning 1 in the Pacific group, so you're up till, like, midnight, like, once or twice a week, like, with these parties. And, you know, and then then there's just like there's camping trips and dances and panels and H&I and like there's just, it's like a sober boot camp like village, right? Commune. And I just, I got super active in that group, and because my sponsor had walked me through the steps and I had done them properly, I had something to give to women, and I started sponsoring a lot of women. And my old home group, we had a tradition at that time of something called couch commitments. And so if you were single and you had a couch, you could invite like newcomers to come and stay on your couch, and you give them a place to stay. Women, like for women, and they could come and crash at your house. And there was like rules about it. You could only stay so long in a certain way and everything like that. But it was service. Instead of somebody, ending up in treatment or in detox or whatever, they could, as long as they were going to 7 meetings a week and had a sponsor and were actively working the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and looking for a job, and they could come and crash on your couch. And I was young, and I was living in LA, and I was single, and I had a couch, and I started giving couch commitments and walking girls through the steps, and my house just like turned into this incredible like place of like recovery, and it was just such a positive time in my life, and I remember like that there was this girl staying on my couch, and she had a really bad cough. She had like bronchitis, and it was kind of cold in LA for like, I don't know, it was like 55 degrees, right? I know, whatever. Like there's no heat, so it was cold. Right? So she had a really bad cough, and I could hear her out on my couch coughing, and I didn't have a lot of, it was like mayhem in my house. I had another girl sleeping on the floor next to her, and she didn't have enough blankets. I knew she didn't, and I had a blanket, and I remember at that time I took my blanket and I brought it out to that girl and I put it on her, and I remember thinking like, I didn't know what it meant to be selfish, but now I do, like I know what it means to take my blanket off and give it to somebody else who needs it. And that was like, again, just a moment of clarity. And given those couch commitments, it prepared to be a wife, to be a mother, to be a worker among workers. Like that's how I learned not to be selfish, was given those couch commitments and how to show up for other people, no matter what, and to take care of them, right, in a good way, and not like, here, let me help you in my way, right? Like, but really, like, what's best for the whole here? Like, how can I be useful? And it just filled my heart with joy. And so since that spiritual awakening, I've just been super privileged to have a really joyful, happy life, and that's not to say that hard things haven't happened since then. Since then, my dad passed. My dad was 27 years sober when he passed, same amount of time as me, and he had 10 years more than me. And at the end of his life, like, I was able to care for him. He and I went to meetings together. Like, the last time I saw my dad, he and I both spoke. Yeah, he spoke, and then I spoke, and then we went out to dinner together. And when he passed, I had perfect peace. Like, we were as close as we possibly could be, and and when we had his funeral, like, all the AA showed up, and it was a beautiful experience to have that. And I had gotten married, and and I had gotten married to another member of my home group who was a good member of AA, and over time, like, alcoholism crept up on him, and he got real sick, and eventually he went out. He went out with almost 12 years of sobriety, and it was devastating to me. It was absolutely devastating. I was just, I really thought we were just going to have this incredibly beautiful life forever in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just watched, like, alcoholism take him over as if it were like cancer, and I was powerless over that. There was nothing I could do about that, and it was just absolutely tragic. And we had a son. He had a son who I helped to raise, and his name was Bishop, and I had him in my life since he was 7, and then when John relapsed, he moved out with his dad, and that was when he was 17. And last summer he overdosed and died. Yeah. And on fentanyl, which is just killing kids left and right in Los Angeles. But I'll tell you what, while I am I can't even explain the grief around that, I feel like my part is clean. I do not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. I don't feel like I made my amends before he passed. I did everything I possibly could. So this experience of being sad but not being guilty is just incredible freedom, and that is what it is, right? And the gift of Alcoholics Anonymous is that I know that I will have that experience to be useful to another. And I had some woman call me today. I'm not kidding. I was on a panel in Los Angeles on Monday night at Claire Detox, and I met some woman whose son died of a fentanyl overdose last summer. And she called me today and she asked me to sponsor her. Right? So, is that not AA working in my life, right? Last year, 2 years ago, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I got super sick. I'd never gotten sick in sobriety. I've never been sick. I've been super healthy my whole life, and I got Crohn's disease. I had a bout of Crohn's disease a couple of years ago, and oh my God, was I sick. And what I can say is that Alcoholics Anonymous gave me the resilience and the strength to carry through. I would talk to my sponsor. I'd be like, Nancy, I don't think I can stay awake at night on a Zoom meeting. I'm by the end of the day, I could barely sit up. I just don't think that I can go to meetings like this. And she'd be like, morning meeting. Right? It's a morning meeting, right? Make it the first thing you do. And so I joined the 6 a.m. Meeting up in Zoom meeting up where I was, and that group became super special to me, and they carried me through being sick. And I really had to surrender my physical self to God. I really had to get to a place I was like, God, if this is how you want me to be, whatever it is, I am yours. If you want my body, I will give it to you. Whatever it is supposed to be. If I'm supposed to, be limited in some way physically that you can make me more useful, then I'm okay with that, however it is. And that was a really hard surrender. That was a bitter pill. I was not excited to make that surrender, but I did. And, the good news is little by slow I've gotten well again. And I think a lot of that has to do with being back at live meetings. I don't think that there's a coincidence that when Alcoholics Anonymous shut down, my whole freaking body shut down, right? Just everything in me shut down. And the more I'm back in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, the better I feel. And that is how it is for me. That it is a disease of my mind, body, and spirit. Drinking is but a symptom, right? And alcoholism is cunning, baffling, and powerful, right? And if I do not treat it with the program of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to die, right? And if alcohol doesn't take me out, my own immune system will shut down, right? that is how it is for me. So anyway. Super glad to be here. A lot of fun things and positive things. I've talked a lot about the rough things in my sobriety. A lot of great things have happened in my sobriety, and I'm super blessed. I travel a lot. I'm back traveling again. I was in LA in the past couple of weeks. Before that, I was out in Hawaii. I was at the 12 Coconuts meeting, in Hawaii for 10 days, and I've been up in Mammoth Mountain in the Sierra Nevadas. David and I were skiing, and we were backpacking in San Diego, and now I was up at Perry Street in Manhattan this morning. I truly have the joy of living. I really cannot thank Alcoholics Anonymous enough for my life, and really appreciate you all being here. Thanks.
Just another quick round of applause. That was excellent. All right, my name is Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you all for being here. It's customary for us to form a line and thank the speaker. They come in on their own time and expense, and just a wonderful, wonderful talk. So thank you so much for that. Just a reminder, food and fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock, and service is an excellent way to stay sober. We could always use help if you want to become a home group member. There's no requirements, just a desire to stop drinking, and we'd love to have you. And it's an excellent way to help people and stay sober. And we could use some help cleaning up, so thank you very much. And those who care to join us, we will close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Just one more quick announcement. We have another female speaker next week, Gina T. It's a real fire and brimstone type talk, a real alcoholic and a real drug addict. So thank you.
There you go. Good stuff. Always good. Princess.